How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Home Repairs, and today I want to run you through the whole process of getting your plumbing installed for your shower mixing valve. Now this is going to pertain whether you have a shower or a shower tub combo like I have here. I'll be running from my existing 1/2-inch copper lines and converting those over to PEX Type B, which is an awesome product and very forgiving for DIYers like myself. And then for our valve, we're going to use the best valve I think on the market, which is the Delta R1000. This valve has been tried and true and also is very serviceable. So if you ever have an issue with your cartridge valve or need parts, they're going to be readily available at most of your home improvement stores. And just like most of my videos, this one will be broken up into chapters. So if you go down in the timeline and you hover over that, you'll see the titles of each of those chapters so you can jump around and get the information you need for your specific project. So let's jump into it, start taking a few measurements and getting our blocking in place. Now, placing your blocking doesn't have to be complicated, but you do want to spend a little bit of time just to make sure you have it in the right position so you can get your elbow for your shower head, your valve, and your tub spout all mounted exactly where you want them and securely fastened to each one of these boards that we're installing. Now there are 3 critical dimensions. One of them is going to stay constant, and that's going to be the dimension from your stud, your back wall stud, to the middle of the drain, because you want everything lined up perfectly with the middle of the drain. For me, that's 14.5 inches. So that's going to be my constant where I'm going to be positioning these components. For me, all that's confirming is I'm good because I have this wall cavity, which gives me plenty of space because 14.5 is right there for me. So that dimension's good. So 2 dimensions I need to worry about. Vertical dimension. So specifically for my shower arm and the corresponding elbow, I'm sitting on the base plate right now. So I want to reference the floor. All that means is I need to take off the thickness of that 2x4 on the base, which is 1.5 inches. So I want this guy positioned 80 inches off the floor. So that'd give me 78.5 inches to the middle of that elbow. That's where I want to be. So that means the top of my blocking, if I wanted the midpoint to be 78.5, would need to be 3/4 inch above that. So that would take me up to 79.25. So I'm just going to make a mark, because that's going to be the top of my blocking once I position it in the wall cavity. And then I'll transfer the same 79.25 to this side. Again, your blocking doesn't have to be perfect, but you need it in the right spot so you're not redoing your work. So now I have that vertical dimension, but I also want to offset this inside the wall cavity corresponding to the part that I'm mounting. Specifically for this elbow, the back surface will be going on the front of the blocking, and then I have 1.25 inch thickness to the front surface. So I want that front surface just slightly behind my finished surface here up top. Now I'm gonna have 1/2 inch drywall in this area because it's above my surround. So my surround goes right against the actual studs, but this actual elbow is going to be up in the drywall. So I need to account for this 1/2 inch. So that means I would offset that front of the blocking back from the front surface 3/4 inch. So I'll just go ahead and mark that as well. So it's probably not bad to at least cross-reference to see if it passes the eyeball test on whatever you're going to mount to the specific blocking. And then I'm just going to sink 2 screws per side. All right, she's solid. Now let's go on to the valve blocking. So now moving on to the actual valve spacing itself. Now, because of this tub, it's going to be 30 inches off of the floor. If this was a shower, you'd favor about 48 inches. The 30 inches favor somebody in the tub, so it's much lower where you could reach it if you're in the tub. So additionally to that, I need to know in the wall cavity. Now, you come with a small adapter which should flush up to your outside surface. That is about 2.8 inches to your mounting flange here, or let's say 2.75 inches. So for me, because my acrylic wall surround actually sits right against the studs, it doesn't have any build out, which you'd have with tile, where you have the backer board or whatever product you're going under your tile, where you'd have a really thick build out. I don't. So I need that 2 3/4 really offset into my wall cavity almost completely. So I can't use a 2x6, which I'd usually use. I actually had to go grab a 1x6. I got a little better board than pine because I want a little more dense wood since I don't have the thickness to secure the valve that I usually would with a 2x. So this guy is going to be set all the way back against the wall, and then the midpoint is 30 inches off of the floor. That's how I positioned it. Let's get it in place. All right, so this is my last block that I need to put in place for the tub spout. Now I'm using a little rough end here, copper, and I'll use the Delta adapter you'll see later to actually go off this rough end, and that's what the tub spout's going to screw into. This one has a dog ear. It has 3 mounting holes on the top, 3 mounting holes on the bottom, and then 2 on the sides. So what I did is I positioned it so obviously the stub out is 14.5 inches away from my wall surface on the back wall. But then also once it's mounted, I wanted the tub spout itself to be 4 1/4 inches off of the top of the tub here. So that was where I positioned it. And then I notched out that 2x4 so I could actually set this within and then have 2 additional mounting screws. So instead of just mounting it on the bottom side, giving it a little play, I'll have some additional mounting screws that will really firm up this tub spout. So if anybody accidentally hits it or anything in the future, no problem. It will be able to actually handle that. So that's it for the blocking. Now let's jump in and convert the copper water lines, hot and cold, over to PEX to feed this valve. So down in the crawl space, here's my old existing copper. This is my cold water line. As expected, would be on the right side of the valve. We're looking at the valve from this direction. And then this hot water line is kind of hiding behind my 1.5 inch drain coming out of the tub. Now I'm going to pass PEX. This is PEX type B, 1/2 inch PEX type B. That is what I'm going to convert over to. And I'm going to cut my 2 existing copper pipes here and here. And then I'll convert those over with a focus on making this a DIY project. So I'm going to use a 1/2 inch union from SharkBite. Now this fits 1/2 inch copper such as this, and also 1/2 inch PEX. The little white insert in this design is actually made for PEX. It fits on the inside of the tube, which gives it a little bit more rigidity and makes sure the O-ring makes the seal, which is the critical piece of a SharkBite fitting. So make sure your water is off, and then you can cut your pipes to the desired length. I'm gonna leave about 2 inches, but I want the SharkBites to be down in the crawl space just so I can monitor. I know some people are concerned with the longevity of a SharkBite. I'm not as much concerned, but I do like the idea that the fitting itself is going to be down in the crawl space. So if I ever need to service that in the future, if I ever wanted to solder on a fitting, I could. So that's why I'm going to leave a little extra so I can pop that SharkBite off if I ever need to service it in the future. Now once that opens up, before you completely cut it, just let the water drain out. And this also would be an early indicator if your main water shutoff is not off and you might have an issue, especially if you broke this all the way open. So I did use a 1/2 inch cap for a SharkBite. These are reusable. If you're gonna be using SharkBites, it's always good to have these tools. So you compress down that internal ring, and then that's how you can work that cap off of that pipe or fitting off. So then I'll be able to reuse this cap. So now I have the copper pipes cut to where I want them. You would want to make sure you've removed any of the burrs. And that would be both on the internal with a deburring tool, or even something like a little emery cloth on the outside. Because remember, the SharkBite is going to seal to the outside of this pipe. So you would want to make sure no burrs cut the internal O-ring and that the O-ring is able to get a nice seal on the exterior of this pipe. So now I'm ready to install my SharkBite fittings. I cleaned off my copper pipe, making sure no burrs. I also marked 1 inch, actually 0.95 inches on the pipe. And why you mark that is because that will be the insertion depth of the actual fitting. When you start to press the fitting on, you'll reach some resistance. That's when the pipe is starting to hit the O-ring. That is not when you want to stop. You have to go past that resistance to the full depth. And if you only go to that O-ring, I would say that is the leading cause of shark bite failures, is you will get a leak because the O-ring is not fully sealed around the pipe. So I passed down my PEX 5-foot sticks from the bathroom. I'm going to insert those first, also mark those obviously. All right, so that is full depth. And again, I'm matching my colors, my blue line to the cold water line, just so we don't confuse anybody later on. Okay, now we have one side installed. And that's it. Now we are going from 1/2 inch copper to 1/2 inch PEX. Shark bites are wildly convenient, and I'm a believer. Would I bury this behind drywall? Maybe not. But if I ever had any issues, I'm set up. I could solder this joint. If you have skills, you're comfortable with soldering, solder on an adapter right here to PEX. That's going to be cheaper. It's going to have longer longevity. But for us DIYers, man, these shark bites are great. So just a little bit more prep work prior to mounting everything up. Now, if, again, you have soldering skills, I would get these fittings that internally mount to the threaded ports and go ahead and solder those. That would be a great, long-lasting, especially if it's soldered correctly, joint. So that is what I'd recommend. Now for DIYers, and when you're using PEX type B, you can go ahead and get these threaded fittings that's going to convert you over. Now this is the way we would be looking at it mounted. So this is going to be our cold side, this is going to be your hot side, this going down to the tub spout, this going to the shower. I'm going to go straight off of all these sides, and then I'll just have a 90-degree PEX fitting to bring that cold side down and to bring that hot side down. So that's how I'm going to do it. Now you might also see something like this, which seems like, hey, that's a great idea. You know, I can tighten that up and then I can have it shooting straight down. That'd be awesome. Well, not so fast, right? You're gonna be hard pressed to get that fully tightened, a leak-free fitting, and it exactly pointed in the direction you want. So do not use these. That's gonna be an issue and you'll just be fighting leaks. Now to seal these off, I will be using Teflon tape and pipe dope on the outside of the Teflon tape. And then do remember, when you're looking down at the threads with the Teflon tape, you'd want to go and wrap it in the clockwise direction. So I do about 3 or 4 wraps on each one of these. Then I would go ahead and put some pipe dope as well. Don't have to go too crazy. And then I'd go ahead and thread on my fitting. All right, so now that baby is torqued down, I have all my fittings on there. And now just from ease of installation, I'm gonna put on what PEX lines I can. So the red one's going to the hot water side, blue one's going to the cold water side, short red tube going from the bottom is going to the tub spout, and then long 50-inch sections going up to my shower head. go ahead and just go around and crimp those rings, and this will make it just a little bit easier to install and less crimping once it's mounted. And then checking with our go, no-go gauge. So the go gauge, checking all of those, making sure it fits in, and then the no-go gauge, which should not fit around it. Okay, so we're all good. So now I'm ready to start mounting, and I'm using a laser. Now, if you don't have a laser, depending on how many different projects you're doing around the house, these can be extremely handy and honestly only cost about $90. You can look down in the link in the description to my Amazon store, and this exact laser I have as the recommended laser for DIYers because the cost isn't too high, but it does all the features we need, such as this. So what I'm doing here is I've just set the vertical laser at 14.5, which will line me up perfectly with my overflow and my drain. And then also the cross laser is at 28.5, which gets me 30 inches off the floor. So then I'm going to take my valve, and then I have the 2 sticks that we installed with the shark bites on the copper in the crawl space, and these are actually nice because they help to hold the valve in place. So what I want to do is get the valve all lined up where the actual X marks the spot. I have the valve in place, or you can just use the cover that comes with it. All right, so get it to where you want it, and then we'll just go ahead and sink 2 1/4" deck screws. All right, then make any small adjustments if needed to make sure you're level. The laser coming off these stubs is really nice to use for your level location as well. So now we're securely mounted with our valve. Now the laser in the same location is going to give me a vertical for the shower elbow. So let's go ahead and mount that one and also crimp it onto the pecs. So now for the elbow for our shower head, I have a mark for my vertical distance, which is going to position this 80 inches off the floor. And then I'll just go off the laser to make sure I get the midpoint 14.5 inches off of my studs here. All right, that guy is going nowhere. So now I'm just going to cut this guy to length and then do the final crimping. Then just confirm it with a go, no go. Go side's good. No go, not fitting over. All right, that one's good. Now let's go to the tub spout. All right, so we don't have a ton of room here for the tub spout. So I'm going to position the spout in place. Mark on the pecs where I'll need to cut. Cut the pecs at my mark. All right, then we'll go ahead and crimp that guy. Go, check. No go, check. Then I'm actually going to mount this with 5 screws. All right, that guy is now bulletproof. Okay, the last thing we need to do is 2 90 fittings, and then we'll have this fully roughed in. So for the last 2, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the shorter piece, get the 90-degree installed on the shorter piece, and then I'll do the final cut on this longer piece. There's more forgiveness in this longer piece, so I prefer to do the short one first, even though PEX overall is pretty forgiving. So that is it. We got the Delta valve in place. We have our tub spout, our shower elbow, everything's ready to go. And I'm ready to test it out, but first I need to get this tub shower surround up and running. So if you want to see that project and this whole DIY friendly bathroom remodel for a budget of $1,500, check out this video right here. It will walk you through the complete start to finish project so you can take bits and pieces, apply it at your own home, and help increase your home's value. So thanks for joining me for this video, and we'll catch you on that next one. Take care.